on. And I'd like to thank you all for coming to the Traverse Area Historical Society annual meeting. We are going to be reporting on the state of society, our budget, and we'll open it up to general membership input and conversation. But first, I am very pleased to announce our keynote speakers for today. Elyse Heffner and Veronica Caughran are going to speak on the topic entitled George Washington's Farewell Address. These two middle schoolers won national acclaim through the awards that they received through this presentation that you're going to see today. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring them up and they're going to take over the podium to present on their topic.
Hello, so my name is Elyse and this is Veronica, and we are now 9th graders at Central High School, and we started this project in 8th grade.
Got mic on?
And we started this project in 8th grade during our history class at East Middle School. So we basically started this in October of 2020. And we started our research process for our project entitled Washington's Farewell Address.
So we started by picking our topic in October, and we had about like 4 or 5 months to research information on it. And at the end of those months, we started to put our information together and group it up into the categories we have on the board. And by the time that was done, it was around January or like February, and we had to submit our we had to submit our finished project for our school like assignment in March. So our original board was about like half the size of that. So throughout our school assignment all the way up until nationals, it changed a lot. And I don't know, it was a really fun opportunity that we had, and it was
So after we competed and we turned this in for our school assignment, which was put into the grade book, which is what we originally did this for, we put our project up in our school library, and then judges came and looked over everybody's projects from the honors history classes that we took in the middle school, and they selected projects to move on to the district competition. Ours was selected to move on to the district competition, which we were really excited about, and it then moved on to states from there. When we moved on to states, we had to redo our board to have a better opportunity to compete in the state competition. So our instructor helped us put together this board, which was a lot bigger. However, it was different. We then competed in the state competition and did really well in it. And we moved on to nationals, which then our instructor told us that we would, if we wanted to take the opportunity to move on to nationals, we would have to change our board within a very, again, we had to change it again within a very short amount of time. And we had to change some of the information to be able to compete the best that we could. And we decided to take the opportunity because we worked really hard on it and we're very proud of what we did. So we took the opportunity, and we redid it for the 3rd time, which then turned into this. And yeah, we ended up competing in the national competition in June, and we turned it in during early June, and we found out that we actually won one of the special awards at the national competition. So we won the Washington Impact on the Nation Award. And we actually ended up winning a certificate, a medal, and $500 of scholarship prize apiece, which was very exciting to us. And yeah, we're just going to walk you through the slideshow that we ended up presenting to the national competition. Okay. Okay, so this was the full exhibit we had to walk through.
If the mic isn't working, we might be able to hear you better if you're just a little further forward. Is it working at all? I can't tell. You think it is? Maybe there's just. I think maybe if one of whoever's doing the talking just sort of like stands up here and the other person moves the slides, will that work?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. I just think I want everybody to be able to hear
Yeah.
what I say.
Okay, so this is the slideshow that we presented to the national competition for National History Day. And we basically just talked about in our presentation about how Washington's farewell address presented the fact that he wanted unity within the political parties before he stepped out of office. So we presented our full exhibit in the first slide. And then we had to talk about a bunch of different things, including the formation of political parties and the background, and cited every source that we had to use.
Yeah, you put that, like, put that in your pocket.
Okay.
Right, try that.
Okay,
Is that,
is it working?
I think so.
Okay, so we had to submit our citations to all the sources that we used, including primary and secondary sources to how this information supported our thesis. Yeah, this was our background of the information that we used. Okay, so then we put in the actual farewell address itself through primary sources and other images that supported our thesis on the center top panel. And then we also included how other important people in the government supported or went against the farewell address.
Did you go back to the thesis?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this was our thesis. It was Washington's farewell address communicated to the United States his fears for the future of the country. Even today, Disagreements persist between political parties and may reflect back on his words. Washington's fears were realized, proving that what a president says can influence the nation's thoughts and actions. So our center panel was about the farewell address itself and what it provided, the information that it provided to the nation and what he was trying to communicate through it. We included a lot of quotes to support the ideas that we thought of and how it connected back to our thesis. And then we also included in the bottom panel how others how others reacted when his farewell address was presented, including other people related into the government with him, including Thomas Jefferson. These were all notes written back and forth. Thomas Jefferson to George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and Alexander Hamilton to George Washington. We also included the short-term impact that the farewell address had on the nation. And then we also included some more information, including the Alien and Citizens Act that supported his farewell address and had a very important role that had to do with it. And then our conclusion was the power of Washington's words to sum up everything of what about how it impacted the nation and just everything that it provided through his words that he used. So that was our presentation of our exhibit that we put into the national competition.
Where was the competition?
In Washington.
It was at a university, however, because of COVID, we weren't able to actually go. So we were actually in Florida when it happened. We were at Nationals for volleyball. So we ended up watching it on virtually.
I think in the past, there have been Traverse City students that have gone to Washington pre-COVID, so it is in DC when they're able to go. But at least you were on a trip.
Yeah.
So given the powers of Washington's words, I mean, you really, what you've done, you've taken the history and you brought it to the present. Because as you're citing here, President Obama and these other pieces, do you think that the project itself gave you a better appreciation of how history connects to today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. It also just shows how relevant all the stuff that happened, the events from the past still are today.
Are there other questions for our keynote? Larry?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether or not there was a particular sentence or possibly a theme for either of you in the address that stuck with you or jumped out at you and stuck with you, I guess.
I don't know if there was specifically one sentence, but I think the ideas that are supported of how it's still relevant today were the most impactful to us.
He also talked a lot about unity in his address, and we thought that was pretty cool because it's still pretty relevant. And he talked about how, as a nation, we should be
More united together.
Did you two find it more meaningful actually going back instead of just reading a text in the book, actually going back and finding the original documents? Did that have?
I think that was one of our favorite parts, is actually finding the images and looking at visual representations of everything that happened.
I also had to do a project on the same topic when I was your age. And then I also learned about other new forms of government that came along, for instance, after the French Revolution, and also beforehand in the British Parliament and so forth. And it seemed to me that most forms of government did devolve, if you want to say it that way, into parties, partisan disunity. And it was almost like you could start a stopwatch and wait and it would happen. you think Washington was naive in his farewell address?
I don't know if we would consider it that, but I would say that mostly he was just warning of what would happen if you didn't accept the fact that it was gonna happen and you went against it. And he was just like warning of the possibilities that could come if it got worse. Any other questions?
Did you win your volleyball tournament?
Well, we actually did really well, but there we didn't win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I want to thank our keynote speakers for their great presentation. And one of the many ways in which the Historical Society assists our students in this area is that we help to fund our middle schoolers in participating in the National History Days, both at the local, state, and then also national levels. And so when you contribute your donations and your memberships, those funds help to pay for these wonderful young historians in their work. So just to keep that in mind. So I'd like to now turn to the annual report. Since our last annual meeting, the Society has been actively expanding back our activities from the time, of course, of the pandemic, which we, of course, still are facing, but we are gradually being able to move into more of our activities. Today is a kind of a note for us because what we are seeing today is our first in-person program since February of 2020. And I want to, again, make a particular thank you to the Traverse Area District Library, because without them, we could not have presented our programming over the last year and a half without their wonderful assistance. So much thanks to the library for that, for today and every program since February of 2020. It is with that partnership with the library that we've been able to resume. Not only has this enabled us to reach more attendees, but it's also allowed us to record our presentations and have them available on YouTube through the library and our society websites. One of the things that we had talked about back in 2019 was, would there be a way in which our members could see programs that they hadn't been able to attend? And again, the library has stepped forward and made that possible for us. In December, Chris Roxburgh provided a fascinating presentation on shipwrecks of the Great Lakes to 100 attendees. This fall, we continued to support the archives and provided historic displays at the library. In January, Peg Siciliano presented on pandemics in Michigan, 1918 and today, a timely topic that compared how we dealt with the influenza epidemic and how we continue to deal with COVID-19. As Peg pointed out, there were some remarkable similarities between those two events. In February, Brian McCall presented on the political topic, re-electing Lincoln, the 1864 election that saved the Union. In March, Peg joined with Ann Sweeney and Ann Magoon on presenting on the historical women's groups of Traverse City. These included the Ladies Library Association and the League of Women Voters. In May, Jen Luke provided a program about our upcoming summer tours and showcased our videos on our tours of the Oakwood Cemetery, produced by Jim Warner and presented by Peg. Last month, Peg presented on secrets and mysteries of dating historic photographs. We had a good discussion on how 19th and 20th century photographs can be dated using the clues in the photographs, such as people's fashions, building dates, and automobile years. In addition to our monthly programs, we are pleased to partner with Dr. Emily Mogul, who is heading a $10,000 grant project on developing signage for the Native American historical trail markers known as the Old Indian Trail markers in Traverse City. The success of our work has been expanded to include partners at 3 Lamar County schools through a grant from the Native American Heritage Fund. As we look to later this month, I am pleased to announce our October Oakwood Cemetery tours. As many of you know, these are called the Halloween Oakwood Cemetery tours. The next one is on Saturday, October 23rd at 4 p.m. These are 2-hour tours. And then Tuesday, October 26th at 4 p.m. And then Saturday, October 30th at 2 p.m. We have also been extremely active in providing financial and other forms of support to our partners in meeting our mission. A summary of these events, I thank very much our treasurer, Matt Grolo, for this. These include the following. We have offered 4 Julius Petertil internships at the archives. This amounted to $1,840 of support for archival interns. This grows the archives, both in terms of service to the archives, but also in their learning to be an archival professional. As we mentioned, we have supported the Michigan History Day students through $940 of scholarship. In terms of our mission to preserve history, we have established a Goodell Hitchcock Farmstead project that is now complete. If you have the opportunity to go to Holiday Hills, you'll see the home site of the first school teacher here in Traverse City, and an interpretive signage and benches that have been provided through, again, partnership of our donors, as well as the Wilson family, who are descendants of those first pioneers. We have supported the archives on a monthly basis of $100 or $1,200 a year. And in addition, we have provided additional support of $1,250. And then finally, which will be presented to the Traverse Area District Library Board this Thursday, we will be presenting a check of $10,000 for assisting in the archival shelving that will help to expand the ability of the archives to support our local history collection. So when we think about the financial support that our society gives to history in the area, it is nearly totals $17,000 in this past year. So at this point, I would like to open it up to any comments or questions that people have regarding the society, both its programming and its financial situation. Let me, before I get there, I think I need to bring up the 2022 budget.
Also, I don't know if anyone caught it, but I think Stephen said that the Goodell Hitchcock signage is at Holiday Hills. It's not Holiday Hills, it's at Hickory Hills.
Hickory Hill.
It's hard to, they both begin with H and they're both.
Yeah.
It's Hickory Hills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is our proposed 2022 budget. This is part of what we usually present at the annual meetings. the budget hasn't changed dramatically, but it does somewhat reflect the current realities that we recognize that some of our tours and memberships have declined simply because of access as it is. And so we've made adjustments, though the final income is the same as we have done in the past. As you see here, our donations are coming through the generosity of donors that come and support the Traverse Area Historical Society. We expect that our memberships will be about 3,000. Walking tours are a little less, again, because of the nature of the pandemic. And then in terms of our expenses, one of the new items in the budget is that we are taking 1/2 of the funds that we receive from our cemetery tours, and we're going to reinvest them in the cemetery itself through projects that we have participated in. Last year, for example, we helped the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War to assist in the identifying and actually purchasing new headstones for 3 Union veterans that had not had headstones in the cemetery. And so it is projects like that, as well as the care for headstones, particularly historical ones, that led us to decide to use half of the estimated tour donations to support the cemetery. And that's what the special project in cemeteries, which is a new part of our budget. We continue to support, as you see here, our continuing donations for our archives interns here at the library, as well as donating the monthly $100 to the archives itself. And so the administrative costs are, as you see here, generally these have not changed significantly over the last year. And we anticipate, given both the generosity of our donors and you, our members, as well as the expenses that we expect to come out with a positive fund balance of $3,450 next year. Of course, if the pandemic recedes and we're able to do more tours, that will, of course, impact the revenue side. And of course, it's always subject to the support of you, the members, and our generous donors as to the revenue. So having said that, I will now truly open it up to your questions and comments. Yes.
I'm Peter Copes, and your newest member as of 3 minutes ago. I'm so glad that you're here and the good work you're doing. I look forward to hearing more about it. And I'm a historian myself, started a second job, and I look forward to discussing maybe some additional ideas for programs, such as maybe a historical architecture tour. Some of the stuff that you might see in Chicago on a really big scale.
Yes.
Some of them might work on a small scale in a town like this, where so many people are either new to the area or have come in for vacation period or looking for some enrichment and that sort of thing. So thank you.
Thank you. And we do offer tours, but we are always looking for new possibilities and new tour guides. And so you definitely need to call. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Ann?
Hello, everyone. Ann Hooper, former director of the Foster Museum and then the Grand Traverse Heritage Center. When I came to Traverse City and took over as the director for Foster Museum, Richard Lewis had just taken the job with Traverse City as its city manager about 6 months prior to my arrival. And so Richard Lewis is unopposed in election for mayor of this city. And because of the ongoing, how shall I describe it? Relationship that we had, me as the director of the museum and him as the city manager who owns the museum. I am planning to write a letter to Richard soon, and I'm going to ask him that when he becomes mayor, would he consider convening a community forum and ask the question of all interested people, what is the future of the Con Foster collection that belongs to the city? I think it's time that a decision be made and that action be taken. If the answer turns out to be that the city does not want to continue with the collection, then I'm going to suggest that the legal and responsible thing to do in the public trust is to give it away. And there are in the area about 25 museums. Almost every small town around here has a museum with a collection. And I think those objects that are in the city collection could be distributed into the region, back into the region. And that would include the tribe. They have a museum now. So that's going to be my letter. And if there's anybody here that would like me to add their name as one of the people that would love to be contacted and involved in this community forum, I'd be glad to include your name in the letter. But that's what I'm about, because I still care. Even though I'm only here 6 months out of the year, it's heartbreaking to me that that collection is sitting there in that building, which is fully equipped to be a museum. And it's not.
And the reason it isn't is money?
Well, it's money and it's lack of leadership that cares. We've lost our base here in Traverse City of all the big trees. They're all down that got all of this off the ground, and it's a whole new ballgame. So there's a lot of education that's needed. Yes.
I was of the impression that the reason it's been 3 years or so that they haven't done anything with it is because they were going through the process of NAGPRA, which was notifying all tribes in the United States of any Indian artifact, and that's been completed. And so any Indian artifacts have already been addressed, shall we say, and they don't have to contact local tribes anymore.
Now, the NAGPRA Act came out in 1996, shortly after I arrived at the Con Foster Museum, and for 2 years, my assistant curator processed all of the collection, and tribes were notified. All of that took place. It was all accomplished, and several tribes were reconnected with some material that was repatriated to them. And all of that was created into files, which are nowhere to be found. And so the city entered upon that task again. And it wasn't very successful, but anyway, it was done. I told them that it was done, but there was no record of it, so they did it over again.
My point was that you said something about contacting local area tribes. And I'm of the impression that that part has been done. There's no need to do that anymore. Not that they might not like some of the items that are there just because they would like them, but they're not theirs and they don't lay claim to them.
Yeah, I think her point was that they do have a museum that there may be other items in the collection that they would be interested in. It's a very long, and to a relatively new member here, it's a very long and complicated story as to what went on. And probably longer to go into in the meeting. A lot of good intentions on all sides that, and then some not so good intentions. It may be useful if people want to know that whole story. I'm not saying you shouldn't know the whole story as best as you can, but I think our purpose now, and I haven't actually talked to Anne, but I think the Historical Society's purpose and people who are involved in this is to move forward in a positive fashion and make sure those items are not only safe kept, which they are now, but they also get presented
Right.
in some way where people actually get to use them. And some of the collection, I worked with the collection off and on for a variety of reasons. But again, will agree with me. Some of it is very locally oriented and needs to stay in the area. Perry Ham's top hat. There's a neon sign that was in the original office of WTCM, one of the original radio stations here. Those are just two examples that I can think of that somehow need to stay close to Traverse City.
The Spanish American War cavalrymen who even have the horses harness and
Right.
bridle and saddle.
On the other
Alice
hand,
is
there are
one of the
also a
ones.
lot of things that are more generic. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done to identify the things that need to stay, the things that need to go. And hopefully with, if Richard Lewis does come in as mayor and having had some experience in the past, it'll be a good way to start moving forward. Thank you so much, Anne, for starting the letter.
He was there through the whole process and the renovation of the Carnegie building and everything. So he was there as the manager. So
So I don't mean to shut people off here. I'm just glad.
Just one last question. Where is the collection in Brazil?
supposedly in the basement of the Carnegie Library building on 6th Street.
I have seen it within the last year and a half.
Majority of it.
The vast majority is in 2 rooms, unless it's been moved since then, and I have no reason to believe it has been. 2 secure rooms that do have some climate control in them.
And dry
They
fire
are
suppression.
secure, they're dry, they're fires, so the materials are safe. And I believe the city is totally aware that they are responsible to make sure that those rooms are secure and environmentally secure. It's trying to figure out how to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ann. I would say that our society has been working closely, particularly with one of the commissioners, Roger Putnam, who's been very supportive of our efforts and has worked closely with us. As you know, he is stepping off the commission in November. However, he has been asked to continue to work on this project, and we have been in communication to offer our role to support Roger in the continuing conversation to support the presentation. As Peg and Ann have both noted, it is not only the case of protecting, but presenting it. And right where it has been sitting in the lower level of the Carnegie building for the last 3 years, it's not had it up. And so that's what we really want to do as part of our mission, to not only protect, but to present the local history. That can't be done if it just sits in the Carnegie building basement.
And I think for, again, the newer members, one of the issues or sort of difficulties that have gone along with this collection is it's been owned by the city since the 1930s, but it's been managed by various nonprofit groups under permission of the city. So there's always sort of been this give and take between what happens. They're still working with that.
Other questions or comments regarding the society's activities or budget? Well, if not, then I would say that the final part of our annual meeting is the voting of board of director members. We have three members, one new member, Sarah Powers in the back there, Larry Haynes, and myself, who are running for re-election. And in this election, you can vote for as many people as you want. But before I turn it over to the election, I want to also introduce our other board members, Jim Warner and Matt Grollo, Jen Wu in the back there, and then Sharon Jennings at the membership table. These are your board members. Oh, and Ted Suchilian, sorry. And so I want to, we are a working board. A lot of the work that is done by the society is done by the board members. And so they are here to serve you, but we also look for your support in new ideas that might come forward, as well as your volunteer support. So what I would like to do now is to hand out ballots to anyone who is a member of the society, and then you can fill that out. Jen Luke, who is our board secretary, will collect the ballots and complete the election process. Yes, so for the members of our members who are on Zoom, what I would ask you to do is to put in the chat your support for any one or all of the three candidates on the ballot for this year. Yeah, we think of it.
Yeah, but you know,
Okay, that's sure. Okay. Are you sure? Well, think about it. Think they're gonna touch about it.
Oh, right. Okay. We have,
Thank you very much. Yes. Yes, I'm a member of that. So. I want to thank everyone for voting tonight and for joining us today. If there are no other questions or comments, then I will close this meeting for today and wish you a very good autumn afternoon. Thank you all very much. The refreshments, thanks to Sharon, are over there.
So have I met the two of you before and I just don't know? Okay.
She wrote that book for Lowell.
Oh, I haven't met you in person, but I have read your book.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if I had known you, I still have those copies at my house, but you are a very good.
Yes, I want to.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.